I thank the gentleman. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Meuser, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all very much to the witnesses. You know, a little earlier, we had a colleague making a very sanctimonious speech, which, really doesn't make it in the real world and shouldn't hear. I'm not sure if my colleague understands that the United States, or knows his history, has done far better than the countries that we, or economies that we are trying now to collaborate with, as he put it, or to fall in lockstep. Leadership is not defined as falling in line with other weaker economies and bad ideas. And embracing Basel III is somehow described as leadership? No. Making Basel III better and forging a better path is leadership, and that's what we are trying to do. Not only that, every bank, every business that you speak to, large and small, have a problem with Basel III. I mean, the biggest banks in the country, as well as very small community banks that come and see me. So how embracing Basel III endgame is somehow leadership and not falling in line is, man, sanctimonious at best, and fine, very, very politically motivated, because it doesn't make any logic. Anyway, coming from a fellow member. Anyway, we have a concern on the preservation of U.S. business sovereignty and in the development and adoption of international standards. We want to have our say, and it doesn't seem like we do when it comes to Basel III and many other rules that are being made. So, Mr. Gibson, how do your regulatory organizations prioritize U.S. business sovereignty and standards amidst the growing influence of international regulatory bodies on our financial regulations, such as CS3D and other global paths that the U.S. seems required to follow by you regulators?
So when the Federal Reserve participates in international groups, we're supporting our statutory responsibilities around supervision and regulation and financial stability, and we're working to shape those standards and recommendations to the needs of the U.S. financial system, but the standards in those groups aren't binding, so we take decisions on our domestic mandates according to our domestic goals.
How is Basel III, when you got 98%, I don't know how many letters you got in, you couldn't even name one that was positive. I'd love to see the positive letter, by the way, if that's at all possible. If it's from if that letter is from an actual stakeholder, I'd love to see it. If you could produce that for this committee. How is CS3D in the interests of American small business? Because 150 million euros, you've got to comply, not just in Europe, but in the United States of America. Have we ever heard such a thing before? I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, sure. So something like CS3D is really sort of outside of the remit of the FDIC. So, it's not something we're interested in. It's not something you'll see come out of us. It's really a European thing.
Well, good. But according to Secretary Yellen, not necessarily. So that's a concern, and there seems to be a pattern to these global, how did he put it, collaborations. Let me ask Comptroller Gardner, please, how does the OCC balance international standards from your perspective of the U.S. banking system, ensuring U.S. businesses remain competitive?
It gives us, Congressman, an opportunity, as we said earlier, to talk about raising standards, higher standards, and trying to ensure that there is a level playing field so that the U.S. financial system is not at a competitive disadvantage or losing, let's say, market share to a more lax jurisdiction that has lower standards or is, leading a race to the bottom.
And maybe just for all of you, do we integrate in a sincere, important way industry feedback in these international discussions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.